Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. We're going to call the meeting of the Board of Selectmen for Tuesday, November 5th to order at 6 o'clock. First off, I want to introduce everyone. Up here at the table to my right is Robert Pompriand, who's the town manager. To my left and working down the table is Selectman Janice Livingston. We have Police Chief Murray. We have Police Deputy Chief Gill, Fire Chief Pedrazi. We have Carly Antonellis, the Assistant Town Manager, and then down in the audience we have Mark Wetzel, DPW, and Alan Minoyan, Director of Community and Economic Development. On the agenda for this evening, we have an overview of the decision-making process that led us to the decision made on October 15th, presentation on the public safety challenges and concerns, and then we are going to open up for public input. On the public input, we're going to open up to questions first that are pertinent to the presentation, and then we'll open up for public comments in general. That's it. And I'm going to turn it over to Robert Pompriand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening. We're going to start with an overview of the decision-making process as to how we got to the October 15th Board of Selectmen's meeting where the decision was ultimately affirmed by the Board of Selectmen, because I think that is important, and I think it's important for the public to know that public safety decisions are not made in a vacuum. Nobody woke up one day and decided to make this difficult decision, that there is a process. So how did we get to the October 15th meeting? And I want to point out, as you can see on the screen, that on October 15th, the Board of Selectmen voted to support any necessary changes to the 4th of July event as recommended by the police and fire department for public safety reasons. And ultimately, that recommendation from the chiefs and myself as the head of the administration to the Board of Selectmen was that the fireworks needed to be canceled at Peroni Park due to fundamental public safety concerns. And at the request of the Board of Selectmen this evening, we will walk you through not only that decision process, but point out to the extent of our ability what these issues are. I also just want to point out that prior to the October 15th meeting, there have been ongoing public safety challenges with this event each year. And our public safety, fire and police, which are top-notch, have made it work. However, it has gotten to a point where just making it work is no longer in the public safety, not only for the attendees, but for those working the event, or in the best interest of the town. So at the conclusion of this past event, which was on July 6th, I was approached by the chief of police and the chiefs regarding some fundamental public safety concerns that had been ongoing at this event. At the request of the chiefs, there were a series of internal public safety meetings held from the period of July to October, which I convened on the recommendation of the chiefs to discuss the various public safety issues, concerns, and challenges with respect to Peroni Park and the fireworks. These meetings culminated in a memo that was put in the Board of Selectmen's packet by me, dated October 10th, Town of Ayer, July 4th, Celebration Public Safety Discussion Memo, which summarized the major concerns, and myself, the two chiefs, the deputy chief, the DPW superintendent, and the director of community development met with the Board of Selectmen at their October 15th meeting to discuss this memo in more detail. And at the conclusion of that discussion, the Board of Selectmen did vote to support the recommendation, and this is the professional recommendation of the police chief, the fire chief, which as the town manager I support as well, that we cannot continue to have the fireworks at Peroni Park. The recommended changes that the Board of Selectmen supported, that's what those changes were. It was not an easy decision based on the history and importance of this event and what it means to so many people. So we are here this evening, and we appreciate you being here this evening to further explain this decision and the specific issues so the public has a full understanding, talk a little bit about next steps, and then as Chairman Hood mentioned, we would take public questions on the material from tonight first, and then an opportunity for public comment. That's just a copy of the memo that I was referring to. And I'm going to call on the chiefs to weigh in as we move forward. So let's start with, what are the challenges at Peroni Park for fireworks? And there are three basic challenges to fireworks at Peroni Park that have been an ongoing and increasing challenge for public safety. And as I mentioned, the chiefs, to their credit and their departments, have made this work for many years, but it is reaching a point where that is no longer viable or safe. And those three issues are the unique characteristics of Peroni Park, insufficient public safety personnel to safely manage the event, and a lack of a safe alternative location to host fireworks and air. So these are the three major factors driving this decision. Peroni Park thus is an ideal location to launch the fireworks, and Chief Pedrazi momentarily will explain why Peroni Park is an ideal location to launch the fireworks. But the challenge is it is not an ideal or safe venue for the size of the crowds that fireworks have been drawing. On average, between 5,000 to 10,000 people, sometimes more, in a very small area. We're going to talk about that there's only one access into and out of Peroni Park for vehicular emergency traffic, which the chief over recent years had to reduce to pedestrian traffic. That is School Street. School Street has no street lights. There is no secured entry of visitors into the park. Currently, there are no pat-downs, searches, and we'll talk about challenges that a single point of access has, lack of adequate parking, increased response times for public safety personnel. So, in explaining the challenges, so Peroni Park, as mentioned, is an ideal location to launch fireworks. And what makes that an ideal location, I'll ask Chief Pedrazi, who has for many years overseen the firework piece of it, explain a little bit about why Peroni Park is an ideal location for the fireworks, and then we'll get into some of the challenges that other locations have.
Hello? Making sure it's on. So Peroni Park is a great place to shoot the fireworks off because you have Grove Pond, which is a natural barrier. And to do the show that they do down there, you need 840 feet clear circle for the fireworks unless you have an approved by the State Fire Marshal's Office natural barrier, which we have approved in writing. So that cuts the distance down in half to the crowd from where the fireworks are lit. And then there's an additional lowering of the distance to the crowd because, excuse me, because they can angle the mortars out over the pond, and that cuts the distance down by a third. So it brings it down to 280 feet, which is manageable. We usually set the fence up at 330 feet just to give it a buffer zone. We've had to marshal, because the fire marshal checks that distance every year they come out. They check the fireworks display before it goes off, and they check the distances. One year we were close and had to move the fence back a little bit. So it's an ideal place to shoot the fireworks off. And the other thing is you can secure that with a snow fence from the pond all the way down to, all the way around so nobody can get in. If it has to be done in another area, you would have to secure a circle twice the size of what we use now. It would actually have to be more than twice the size because you wouldn't have a natural barrier. That's why it's an ideal place. And you're shooting them out over the ponds, so there's very small chance of having a fire. We did have Burton's Island catch on fire one time years ago, but other than that, I don't think we've had any issues.
Thank you, Chief. So the issue becomes with the crowd, and while these unique features of Peroni Park make it a viable launching venue for fireworks, it's not an ideal venue for the large crowd that continues to grow to safely assemble. And as noted, the crowd average size is between 5,000 to 10,000 people. And as we were looking to the future, the July 4th, 2020 fireworks would actually fall on Saturday, July 4th, which is an important point to note because this will, we believe, lead to a larger crowd, but as we get later into the presentation, further compounds Chief Murray's challenge of getting additional police officers for this event. And fireworks displays, in talking with the chiefs, generally draw large crowds from all distances, regardless of the date and the location, as that has come up, whether it was held 2 weeks before, 2 weeks after, or an alternate date or time. It is the feeling of the chief and the administration that you're still drawing a large crowd because fireworks drive a large crowd. As we continue on to discuss the Peroni Park challenges, I would like Chief Murray to discuss a little bit from his experience as the head of the department, some of the challenges the condensed location that Peroni Park presents, as well as the issue of public safety access and the challenges they're facing there. Chief?
So as you can see by the slide, Peroni Park, as we've already said, is a unique venue. It's a nice venue, but to handle the amount of people that come down to what has become one of the best fireworks displays in the area, it's gotten just too big to manage. There is only one way, we say one way in, one way out, and that is School Street, a very narrow street if you've been down it. There are no street lights on that street, so at night when everybody's leaving, it's very, very dark. And so it presents a problem for public safety, from a public safety point of view. If we have all that pedestrian traffic, which we have now, over the years, have learned to cordon that area off and not allow motor vehicle traffic to come down there, we still have droves of people. And you have so many people coming down that way because there's no place for people to park in the park. There's no place. There's a few spots at the, on the side or the lower park. We probably 40, 50, Jeff, people can park there. But other than that, we limit parking in the neighborhoods so the neighborhoods aren't congested and clogged and don't allow fire trucks and ambulances to get down, excuse me. So all those people are walking to the park. We try to keep Pond Street open for public safety only. But because we're so short-staffed, we can't man all the barricades that we put up. And people don't care. If there's nobody there, they move them, they drive around them, they push them out of the way, even though they're very heavy, filled with water, they find a way. And so droves of people will come down Pond Street as well. And so the bottom line for us really is we don't have the staffing. And I think we have a slide later on, Robert, that will show that. So I don't want to get into that right now. So those are really our concerns, is just the amount of people walking down there and no safe way for them to get down. It's a bottleneck. Once they're in there, there's one way out. And I know some, you got the pond in the back. Nobody's really going to jump in the pond unless they have to, unless you like polluted water. And people think that, that they could move out to the sides. But as we know from a public safety point of view, social proofing is that thing that people were going to go where they know. And what do they know? They know the entrance to the park, and that's how they got in. and that's where they're going to get out. And if anything were to happen down there, that's where they're all going to run to. They're not going to run anywhere else. We call it the lizard brain, which is your fight or flight. And that brain's going to take over your human brain, and you won't do things that make sense. So you're going to run to where you know, and that is, again, is the entrance.
So the next issue, which has not new just to this year, in the 9 years that I've been here, this has been a reoccurring discussion with Chief Murray, is the challenge that this event puts on the availability of public safety resources. And specifically, what the chief needs, additional police, professional, qualified, certified public safety resources, not only for Peroni Park during this event when there are 5,000 to 10,000 people down there, but also the rest of the town's needs that may occur during this event. The Ayer Police Department has a total of 20 sworn officers. This includes the chief and the deputy. And I'm going to ask, again, the chief to talk about the challenges that he has with respect to specific public safety resources needed for this event. And we also have a slide that will demonstrate the significant deficit that he's been operating on in previous years as far as the necessary manpower for this event. So, Chief, if you would speak to the public safety resources.
So as far as the number of officers, you heard we have 20 sworn officers. Obviously, we can't have them all working at the park that night at the fireworks. They have other duties. As you can see, we have a day shift, a 3 to 11 shift, and an 11 to 7 shift, and thus the staffing. You'll see 3 to 4 officers. It varies for the day shift and 3 to 11, only because it depends on how the rotation of days off go. So at a minimum, we'll have 3. We could have 4. Currently, we're down to people due to injuries, so we could have 2 or 3 instead of 3 or 4. So on this particular day, we have a parade as well as fireworks. We have officers who have to work the parade. We have officers who have to do all of the setup, and there's an enormous amount of setup and tear down of all the signs, barricades, and things that we need to put in place to make this area work. So, and all of that takes time. Everybody in the department works that day. Everybody's ordered in. Nobody gets the day off. If you have the day off, you're going to come in and you're going to work 10 hours. If you're working that day, you're going to work your 8 hours, and you're going to put in another 4. And that goes for the deputy and I as well. When the parade was earlier in the day, last year we had it later. When the parade's earlier in the day, I'm here from the start of the parade or an hour before till the last firework goes off and everybody's home. So we stay here all day. So for the park and for the setup of the park, as you can see on the chart, we use 4 officers. That I think Sergeant Cody's here. I think that's all we need, Austin?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that works for 8 hours. We do set up and tear down. Inside the park during the event, we have available to us 8 police officers. That's including the deputy and I. 10 would be optimal for that area. So that shows a deficit of 2. And when we say needed, that's a bare bones need. If we could have more, we could absolutely use them. I'm just trying to give you what I would absolutely want to have. And then for the traffic posts, for the things that I talked about on School Street for the barricades, School and Pond Street specifically, to have somebody at those barricades manning them so we don't have people going through there and moving things, we would need another 11 people or 11 police officers, only because police officers have the authority to tell people what to do and can do something when they don't do what they're told to do. So it gives us really a deficit, a bare bones deficit of minus 13 people. We do try to bring people in from outside, but that's hit or miss. Rarely is it we'll get anybody more than 2 or 3, and that's usually from Harvard and Shirley. Although, you know, if you know how we operate on our detail list, when we hire our details, we go through the department first, but then we put it out to every area of town that's around us. And we can get people from Dunstable, Pepperell, Townsend, as far as Acton. That doesn't happen on a holiday. This coming up year, I don't anticipate getting any extra help because it is a holiday. Sorry.
The fundamental reason for this difficult decision, as mentioned, is public safety. But I think it is important that we touch upon cost. I do want to stress that cost was not in the equation for this decision. Town meeting has been very supportive of this event. The business community, the residents, and the town as a whole has been very supportive, and we are appreciative of that. One of the things, as the chief mentioned, the 13 additional officers would be the minimal ideal requirement. And in discussing this, and it's the first point on this slide, at 13 additional officers with an average crowd of 10,000 people, that's approximately one police officer for every 770 people in attendance. And the greatest challenge in talking with the chief, of course, finances are always important, but the greatest challenge is the ability, as the chief mentioned, to secure an additional 13 police officers for this event. And in discussing preparation for this, we did want to provide the cost, the estimated cost for the 13 additional officers would be approximately $7,150. There are ways to address the financial piece, but as the chief has advised, the challenge is where do you get 13 police officers or more for this event. Additionally, we did want to point out on this slide, currently, this is the 2019 costs for the 4th of July celebration in terms of public safety personnel. Police personnel, $9,897.73. Fire personnel, $1,313.38 for a total of $11,211.11. These costs were absorbed by the departmental budgets. But I think it's important in speaking with the chiefs and the Board of Selectmen to stress that this decision rests on these public safety concerns and not on a financial or cost-saving measure. So we talked about how Peroni Park is ideal for fireworks, but it is a very, very problematic venue for large crowds that fireworks in this event brings. So it begs the question, and why I asked Chief Pedrazi to speak about the unique features of Peroni Park. The next question that has come up, well, why can't we have the fireworks someplace else? And this very question and the challenges with it further compound the difficulty of this decision, because it would be ideal if we did have a viable alternative location within Ayer, which is only 9.5 square miles. Obviously, Peroni Park is the ideal launching site. So one of the things that has come up that is, well, what if we made the event only for Ayer residents? This question has been posed. That would reduce the crowd and so forth. Looking at this, which we did, is a logistical challenge, as Chief Murray can speak to, that if we were to go into some kind of resident only, besides other challenges such as what constitutes an Ayer resident, is it a property owner, is it a tenant, what happens when someone comes with their cousins or so forth from out of town. Administratively, this further compounds the challenge we already have at that bottleneck. But Chief Murray, if you could just briefly explain, because we did look into this, if you were to make it a resident only, what would you need to do to the park in terms of the perimeter?
I think, if we're going to make it residents only, now, again, that's an idea that was thrown out there, you're going to have to control who comes and goes, who comes in, who leaves, and how they come in and leave. And that means you got to put up fencing. You got to fence in the entire park. with more than just, what do you call it, snow fencing, you've got to put up something substantial that they can't get through. And then you've got to have people manning that turnstile or that gate that you're going to have to install at the base of the park, and checking IDs. And I think you can kind of see how problematic that will be. I'm not saying it can't be done, but it does raise challenges and issues.
Then the question that we looked at and has been posed as well is, and we touched upon this earlier, is what if the fireworks were held on a different day or different time? And in looking at this issue, as mentioned, fireworks celebrations, especially around the 4th of July, but any time through the year, are very popular, especially where so many communities have stopped having the displays. It's at a premium. The chiefs can speak to, folks do come to this event not only from the surrounding towns of Ayer, but throughout the state, New Hampshire, and so forth. And regardless of picking a date or time, it was the feeling that we will still have the size of the crowd that is causing the challenges that we have. So then we said, what other potential locations? And as mentioned, Ayer, as many of you know, is only 9.5 square miles, and unfortunately, we don't have many ideal sites. So one of the areas that we looked at, and I asked the fire chief to look at, and I'm going to ask the fire chief to speak to this, and we have a few slides on this, is what about up at the high school, up here at the practice field, or up here there are large fields. Could we move the fireworks up to here as a launch site? And I'm going to ask Chief Pedrazi, and I'll work the slides for you, Chief, if you could explain the challenges that make this location not a viable one.
Well, the location that was proposed was the lower football field, the practice football field. I think most of you probably know where that is. In order to do that, that 840-foot area that I talked about would have to be secured. And if you look at that round circle there is approximately 840 feet. I scaled it off of the size of the football field. It encompasses both Groton Harvard Road and Washington Street, two of your main routes to the hospital. And it's not just shutting down when the show starts. That area has to be secured when the fireworks arrive around 1 o'clock in the afternoon until the show is over around 9:30 and cleaned up. So it'd be physically impossible, for one thing, to fence that whole area off and secure it. Down at the park, like I said, we have the fence that goes straight across to and down to the water, and it's easily looked at because it's an open area. This is not an open area either. There's a lot of woods that's involved in it. So it's just not a doable location. We tried to think of any other location in town that was big enough to hold it, and there just isn't anything, unless somebody has a suggestion.
So then the question came, what about bringing the fireworks back to Devon's? Many people remember that. What about that as a location? And prior to even this year, we have on numerous occasions informally approached both Thatcher Keyser, the previous director at Mass Development, and the current director at Devon's Mass Development about interest about moving the fireworks back to Devon's. It's important to note that first, Devon's is not under the jurisdiction of Ayer, and we cannot simply just bring them back to Devon's. In other words, those fields are not under the jurisdiction of the town of Ayer or the Ayer Board of Selectmen, or we would obviously, that would be an immediate viable option. In these, Devon's has discontinued their own fireworks celebrations for a variety of reasons and concerns. Some of them similar to ours, not necessarily on the specific venue, but other concerns. We have reached out to the new director as well to discuss the feasibility for the future, but in managing expectations, that is not going to be a reality for 2020, that there needs to be some significant challenges that are overcome, whether jurisdictional, liability, and logistics. Mass development has to be willing to do the event. Resources may still be a challenge, and more planning and discussions and work needs to be done as far as a future potential of going back to Devon's. After those two options, unfortunately, as Chief Pedrazi has mentioned, there are no other viable locations within the required distances within Ayer to host the event. And that has made this, further compounded this decision, because it would be great if we had a clear-cut, easy Plan B location. And we don't, and like I mentioned, we won't for 2020 at least. So where does that put us, and what is the future in store for us? The recommendation that was made to the Board of Selectmen was based on these public safety issues we have outlined. And public safety is our priority. It is the priority of the chiefs. They are the public safety professionals. It is our job in everything we do, first and foremost, to protect the public's safety and health. And we need a safe venue that can be properly staffed by public safety professionals, and we don't have that anymore. Peroni Park, as mentioned, is ideal to launch the fireworks, as we've explained, but it is not safe for the large public crowds. The town has no other viable location within the borders of Ayer to launch the fireworks and host the crowd. Devon's is a potential future opportunity, but not in time for 2020, and there's no guarantee because we don't have direct authority over that decision. We do continue to host a lot of events thanks to all of you and your support, and I think that's important to stress. And I understand the importance of the fireworks celebration. There are many other events that we do that we will continue to do, and we will continue to try to find a solution to this issue. And this was not an easy decision, as some may think. It was not a decision that the chiefs, the Board of Selectmen, myself, anybody just woke up one day and said, let's cancel the fireworks. There's been years of concerns on this, and I defer to the professional police chief and fire chief, as does the Board of Selectmen, to make the necessary recommendations to protect all of us. And to conclude, we know that a lot of people are upset. We know that a lot of people are disappointed, and everybody has an opinion. But as Chief Murray said to me recently, and I agree, that despite public opinion cannot sway fundamental public safety concerns. And therefore, that was the reasoning that we went to the Board of Selectmen, seeking their support for the decision, and on October 15th, they did support the decision, and to emphasize whatever public safety needed to do, whatever changes with respect to the 4th of July fireworks at Peroni Park, and that was the recommendation. So at this point, I will turn it back over to Selectman Hood for the next portion of the meeting.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you, Chiefs, for your input on the presentation. So we're going to open it up to questions first. We want to go over just some rules of conduct for public questions and public input. We ask that one person speaks at a time. Follow my instructions as facilitator of the meeting, please. We're going to open up to questions. As I said, we're going to limit 2 minutes per person on questions. And the attendees are expected to be professional and respectful. No personal attacks, please. When you come to the microphone, please state your name and your address. Now, I'll open it up to questions. Yes.
guess I get to be first. So,
Can you say your name and address, please?
David Eartha, 28 Coolidge Road.
Thank you.
Thanks for the prompt, because I always tend to forget. I think I don't know how many other people I speak for. One of the things is the presentation was very well done. However, it wasn't done prior to the decision being made. That's kind of the first thing that a lot of people I talked to said, you know, all very valid information, but if it was presented to the town, because this is a major event. I mean, this is something that really everybody in town looks forward to, has looked forward to for years, 40, 50 years. And that's, I guess, you know, a comment that I think going forward, we should also know that, hey, when something like this important happens, a decision that's going to be made for all of the residents, it should be done in a public format, not an open meeting, but actually something just like this, because this is a big thing. This is not just a small little decision that needs to be made. We hired the two chiefs, and we hire them to worry about things like this. That's their job, and they do it very well, obviously, because, you know, they've thought of all this. However, I mean, when we have plenty of time, I think there are some solutions. I mean, I've talked to people that out at Tanglewood, I've talked to people at Great Woods. You know, there are some possible, you know, solutions or possible alternatives. I think that the thing is that you need to get involved. You know, people in town need to get involved, and other alternatives need to be had. And it ultimately may not be possible, but we have enough time to actually go through and talk about it. I think that should happen. If we can't do it, I mean, we had a charrette when we talked about doing the parking garage, and it went on for months and months because there was a lot of inputs, a lot of people that had, you know, strong decisions. And I think that's what needs to happen. And I think ultimately, I hope the Board of Selectmen listens to the fact that if you're going to make a major change, you know, even ultimately something that's not going to be able to happen, it needs to be happening with the public, with the people,
Okay.
not an open meeting, but an actual charrette, something like this, a meeting, and give everybody an opportunity to talk, speak, and think. There are a lot of smart people in this town, a lot of people that are technically aware, a lot of people that have been involved in major events and things like that. And they haven't been coming forward because nobody's really brought it up. Nobody's really mentioned it. It's like, oh, this is something new. We think we're going to lose
All right.
this event.
Dave, your 2 minutes are up, but
Okay.
I will reply, if that's okay. So I do actually, from a personal perspective, I do agree with you that, yes, I think the meeting on the 15th, the conversation moved quickly, and the information was not presented in the manner that it should have been. I kind of kick myself for that on a personal level. In regards to the comments that it's not publicized that we need help with these things, the administration works very hard to publicize that there is a requirement for, excuse me, that there are open vacancies on multitude of committees and boards throughout town, and that does include the 4th of July committee. So we do a best job as we can to publicize that and make sure and let people know that there are opportunities, and more importantly, there are needs that the town has from the citizens in order to make things run effectively.
And I agree. However, in this situation, maybe others in the future, the need, like I say, on boards and that, we have a very hard time getting people to volunteer. However, when you say, look, we're not going to do it, it can't be possible. There are people that will come forward. There are not people that are going to commit to it.
And our position
years.
is that we need to listen to the two individuals we've hired, as you said, to worry about those things. And if my two public safety officials are going to come to me and tell me that it's not feasible, it's not safe, it's not viable, then I'm going to support the decision that they need to make regarding the changes to that event.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't think this should be the end of it. I think there should be a meeting that allows people to get together in a more, you know, personal one-on-one type or thing that actually talks about the situation. I understand the chiefs very strongly understand their decision. There are other alternatives. There are things that can happen. If it's not possible, it's not possible. But I don't think enough, not from the chief's side, but I don't think enough of the public were aware. And I think we ought to use the resources that are available in the public. And I think the Board of Selectmen should hold at least 1 or 2 meetings and see what comes up and see how much activity or how many people really want to get involved. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Mick Perret. I live at 45 Sandy Pond Road. And I just had a couple of questions, one to Chief Murray. You had said that you need to have police officers during this event. In the setup, couldn't you get by with volunteers working with one or two officers? And when you set up your barricades, can you have like one officer and a couple of other volunteers, non-police officers, assisting that officer? Why does it have to be all police officers working at places like that?
It doesn't have to be, it's just what I've had to work with.
Okay. So we could try and solicit volunteers to help the police department? Is that a viable?
That's an idea that I could consider, yes.
Okay. And for Chief Pedrazi, has anybody considered the use of the airport as a place for the fireworks?
There again, the town does not control the airport, it's owned by the state.
Okay. But can they be approached?
They have been approached.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric Sackman, 7 Church Street. It seems to me that, again, the presentation well thought out, and there seems to be a lot of reasons and concerns for why the decision was made. But it was also, not that there was no concern in the prior years, there certainly was, and it was managed to a certain point, although obviously non-satisfactory. And now we've just decided to stop it. We've gone from 0 to 100. No real other efforts have been made to try something, to try to alleviate anything, to see how it's worked, to improve it, and to then come back to the townspeople and say, we've tried X, we've tried Y, we've tried Z, and these things haven't worked. I'd like to know your response on why you decided to just cancel it, even though, yes, I know, you say it was a very difficult decision. You have all the reasons up there for the very large crowds. They have people at sporting events all the time. Sporting events haven't been canceled because there aren't a million different exits out of a baseball park or a football stadium. They're managed to the best of their abilities. We're not going to be able to, regardless of the venue or the event, be able to eliminate all public safety concerns and everything. We live in a free and open society. You can't get rid of everything. I'm sorry. Thank you.
No, and you're right, you can't get rid of everything, but you can try to manage what you have, and it's not that we decided this year. We've been making progress and changes throughout the years. Every year we think of something new that we can change, some other way that we can try to manage it. But the fact remains, there are still a lot of people coming down there, and we can't manage that. We can't change that. I still don't have enough people to work. I can't change that, even though I've tried. We now belong to an organization called NEMLEC. We thought we could get some bodies from them. Even from them, we couldn't get people, and they're supposed to be, supporting and helping us. No fault of theirs. So it's not that we just this year decided, it's this year that we've brought it up. We have brought it up in the past. Sergeant Cody, when we had a 4th of July committee, sat on that committee, and throughout the years we've said, this is a bad idea. It's just that this year we finally think that it's time to bring this, or my concerns, Chief Pedrazi's concerns, to the Board of Selectmen, and that's what we did.
Kylan Bakar from 64 Washington Street. So what I see from the list here is there's definitely some issues, but it looks like there's nothing that we can't overcome in some ways. Like the lighting, obviously the town, the DPW could set up some lighting. There's other roads that go by the park. If we wanted to, we could work to make a second entrance to the park. There's lots of different ways we could find volunteers. So like I'm a volunteer for lots of events. I work for like the Westford Parade, the Boston Marathon. There's always people that are available that would be willing to help. Like, you don't have to be a trained police officer to do many of these things. You can be just wearing an orange vest and making sure that people are walking the correct directions. Apart from that, I think that a lot of the people enjoy going to the park just for sort of like a fair atmosphere and then seeing the band play. So that's the sort of thing, could we do that at the high school? Like, you wouldn't need the big perimeter and you wouldn't need to close off the roads for that.
Do you want to address the volunteers you brought up, or?
Yeah, I mean, again, the volunteers, nobody's coming forward. Nobody's coming forward to help out. And again, we're not saying the entire event, the entire day has to be canceled. We can't celebrate 4th of July. That's not what we're saying. We've just asked the Board of Selectmen to consider, and they did, canceling the firework part of that. We could do all kinds of other things. All those other things wouldn't draw the crowds that a firework display draws. Our fireworks display would, again, one of the best in the area. Everybody knows that. So we could do something else, or we could think about doing other things besides the fireworks.
Yeah, and because, like you said, it's one of the best in the area, is be great to keep it going. So if there was a way that we could work, like with the selectmen could go through the list and just see, like, we need lighting, so check that off. We need another entrance, check that off. Ways we could find more people. Then if we could just have that list, work through it, I think that we could still do it.
The bigger challenge for 2020 is the fact that it falls on a Saturday, and therefore, generally, our fireworks have been on an off day compared to the other communities, so we've had the ability to pull in a handful of other police officers. But if you look at the slide that Chief Murray put together, what he does with our police force on that day, he pulls in everyone for that day. So we would be very scrapped to try to find resources that would come help and assist with the size crowd. I asked them to discuss and look into maybe having it a week later, but the challenge with that comes back to the crowd size. Even if you could get more resources in, you would probably get a bigger crowd because it's on an off day, and therefore you're running into the same issues. Things like the lighting, those are the easy items to check off of a list, but if the resources aren't available, you can't will the resources to just show up and make it happen. Unfortunately, it's the way that the dates align for next year. But to Chief Murray's point, it doesn't mean that we aren't looking for other alternatives that we can do on that day. On the night of the 15th with Alan Minoyan at the table, we did discuss and ask to look at other things that we could do, whether it's beefing up the parade celebration itself. Over the last couple of weeks, discussion has come up about maybe hosting something that's non-fireworks related at the high school, because that's a better venue where it's a little more open, and like you said, the crowd wouldn't be as large. So it's not, we're not just killing all of 4th of July, it's just, we need to look at alternatives at this point.
I don't know if I'm stepping out of order. My name's Howard Griffin. I live on 8 Newton Street here. We were talking about, with the chief of police, he was saying about the barricades and everything. Why can't we bring DPW up there and put a bucket loader there? They're not going to move a bucket loader. Have the guy sit there for the whole time, pay him. If it comes down to money, we got 2 pot places in town. Where's that revenue going? Duh. All right? Here's my next question. Has anybody talked to Shirley to see if we can consolidate with Shirley? They have those big open fields behind the high school, or not the high school, the junior school. Wouldn't that be a good place to do it?
It's a very good idea, and 2 years ago, we approached the town of Shirley, as well as the Neshoba Valley Chamber of Commerce and the town of Ayer, looking to do some type of a partnership, because the level of volunteers towards this effort is reduced literally to a handful of folks. And we thought combining our efforts. The Chamber of Commerce wasn't interested. The town of Shirley at that time wasn't interested. And as I mentioned earlier, Mass Development isn't interested. And I can't speak for them, but I think a lot of it is some of the issues we're facing. A lot of communities, unfortunately, whether it's a cost, whether it's the resources and so forth, they're in the same boat. But we had approached them, and there wasn't the interest.
Since I've lived in this town since 1985, I only know about 3 incidents. One was the child that got beat up. It was after the fireworks. Second one was the island was on fire. The third one was when the fireworks didn't go up, the wind blew the ashes back into the crowd. And there was like 3 or 4 people that got burned. Those are the only issues I know of. So, are we living in fear or what? I mean, I don't understand why we're canceling it. I understand the principle of what all you said, but think about those too. I mean, that's all I got to say.
Hi, I'm Sue Kennedy, Nashua Street. I'm glad I came to the presentation tonight. It was a very nice presentation. I do agree, though, that there's been a bit of a process problem, is that this is what should have happened several months before we even got to the point of discussing canceling. There have been some very good points brought up on some issues, but the next step would have been for the community to come together. And what I'm hearing is there are a lot of good ideas. And I'm sure there'd be, with more time, there'd be even more ideas. Easy to put up street lamps. None of these are really insurmountable problems. It's more, how do we come up with a solution that everybody can be happy with? And we just skip that part of the process. There isn't any one person that is going to have an answer to all these problems, but you get a group, the community comes together, none of these problems are insurmountable, and I suggest that we take a step back and do that part of the process that we missed. Thank you.
James McGowan, Pond Street. I know real well about the police putting up the signs because it's my street. Question, why don't we have the DPW doing those things to free up our officers?
Yeah, there is assistance from the DPW, there is assistance from the fire department,
Okay.
but it still takes that amount of time to get it done.
Okay, I just
We do-
mostly see all you guys up there doing it.
Yeah, I didn't mean it to sound like we were the only ones doing it, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
The other thing is, part of my job is for like almost 10 years, I did work with MEMA during all the big disasters. What information did you get from MEMA compared to what other towns are doing? Did you use any of those guys to try to take advantage of their skills and possibly recruiting people? Because they've done it all there.
We've not talked with NEMA, but we have talked with our experts through NEMLEC. They actually helped us set up a plan this year. We couldn't fill even half the amount of people they wanted us to bring in to make this work, but they put an entire plan together for us. It's a multi-page plan. So we did try to reach out in that way, and that was our hope, was to get resources in the form of police officers from that agency as well, and that didn't happen either. So we did try to make that connection, but nothing came out of it.
Okay. Could you make a recommendation of what it would take to get more officers and more DPW in there in the forms of bonuses? It might cost more, if it has to be a Proposition 2 and override or whatever, I'd be willing to pay a little more for the best fireworks in the state for a small town. Do you know how much it would take if you were contemplating for putting this and possibly, a $200 bonus or whatever it would take? What type of budget would that be? And with, 5,000 or 6,000 people, obviously, it wouldn't take that much for the citizens, a couple bucks each, to pay for it. could you come up with a physician bonus and to get more people to come?
And, yeah, I don't know. I don't know that that would work. I'm not saying it's bad, it's probably a good idea. It hasn't been tried. But this, it's still a matter of the venue. It's the park. So it's the park in conjunction with manpower that are our two biggest issues.
So if we do cancel next year, is there a way that you could come up with, okay, to do it properly, as you see fit, here's the more of the budget you need, here is the $200, $400, $500 bonus, and here are the other things. Could we get a plan? Maybe not for this year, it might be too late, although I'd love to see it this year. But could you come up with a plan and say, voters, you want, this is what we'll need to do fireworks this year or for next year? I would love to see that, and I'd be more than willing to have my taxes raised a little bit to do this.
Well, again, it's not about the money. I'm
Oh, I
sure
know
if I
that,
came
but-
up with a budget and went to the town and said, I need this amount of money in order, I'm sure people would just be handing it over.
Okay.
It's about getting the people to work.
Well, I know,
And
that's
area
why.
towns, they don't care about the money either, to be honest with you. They just don't want to come over here and work,
Okay.
because it's a celebration day for them as well, or they're, you know, they want to work in their own town, or they have to work in their own town. Every town, we're not unique.
Oh, yeah.
They all have the staffing issues.
But 4th of July only, I've been here for 15 years, 4th of July only happens on 4th of July. Not very often, so.
Right.
But is there a way we could at least see a plan, a possible plan for a future? You know, you make an extra $50,000, whatever it is, you know, I'd love to see, you know, if weeks, months, whatever it would take, so, you know, we could have a good look at it and let the voters decide.
I'd like to speak for a minute, because I think everyone in the audience is losing sight of the problem. The problem is not getting people or paying for them. The problem is the one-way in and the one-way out. It gets very crowded down there. There's never been a major incident at the park. If you get the amount of people that are down there in that one small space and something bad happens, they're going to stampede for that road, and it's going to be ugly.
Why isn't Pond Street considered entry into it?
Pond Street actually goes over private property to get to the park, and we don't have control of that access. We've used it, we don't have control of it.
Okay. Could you get it?
We have used that for emergency access for the last 3 years.
Okay.
And it doesn't work out. There's too many entrances in and out of it to keep people out. There's been cars parked in the way. We've had to find people move the cars out of the way. We've been lucky for a number of years that nothing's happened. Every night that I go back from that thing, I say, God, thank God nothing happened this year either. It's really, you know, it came to a head this year because of the safety concerns of being able to get people in and out of there. We don't station a lot of people down at the park because we take care of the rest of the town also. And getting people down there, if we did have a major incident, everybody's going to be trying to go out, not just School Street. They're going to be going out Blythe Street. They're going to be going out Pond Street. They're going to be going out every street there, and we're not going to be able to get down in there if something major happens.
Okay.
We've just been lucky over the years that nothing has.
Thanks.
Ruth Maxent Schultz, Taft Street. I know that several years ago you were holding disaster scenarios. I don't know who was involved in it. I don't remember that it being out to the public that anybody could come and be in this disaster scenarios. I just remember seeing pictures of it in the paper saying, oh, that's cool. And I knew that there was some registered nurses that were there and some things like that. If you wanted to set up disaster scenarios and invite, we need volunteers, we need people trained to help with this situation because we're overpowered, we can't do it. Could you think about running something like that for this situation and having people trained who could handle this type of thing?
We already have that. We have a CERT team that was started 2 years ago. we're limited to the number of people we can have on that team, but we have 10 volunteers that are trained to help in that manner. And, you know, they're going to be tapped for different events in town. So that's already taking place. There's a liability issue with having just strictly volunteers. The CERT team's limited to 10 people because that's the amount of money that's provided for the coverage for those people that have insurance through the town in case they get hurt while they're doing their volunteer work.
Are those
It's-
employees of the town you're talking about then?
Technically, I guess they are employees of the town, even though they're volunteers.
Oh,
They-
okay, all right, because we hear so often this phrase, liability, liability, and if our town doesn't have a huge insurance umbrella, then we should get one, because just living in fear of somebody suing us or liability or something is not realistic, because it could happen anytime. And that was one comment. Also, there was a gentleman, grew up in town here, his name is Don Massengill, and we've been friends for a while, and Don is in security. He's a security expert. And he contacted me, and he said that he had also contacted you. I'll take off my glasses to read this. And he said that, let me see, he would be willing to be a security consultant if necessary. He grew up in town. He knows Proney Park. He said it can be secure, but it would take trained staff to do it. And once you're in, you don't leave until the end or something goes on for that. But so he is a security expert is saying that it could be workable. So I just wanted to throw that out there since there are different experts in different ways, and this is from someone who has managed large crowds before too. And my brother, who left me this when he left, so I'm presenting this. My brother spoke to the woman who is in charge at Devon's yesterday morning around 9 o'clock. Her name is Jessica Strunken, if I'm reading it correct. And she said that you had called her, Robert, and you had talked to her about the 4th of July, if they were going to have fireworks. But she says she does not remember that you spoke to her about using, or Ayer using their property. She said that was not part of the conversation. So maybe you should go back and look about that and think about that, because maybe that would be an option if she's presented it that way.
Just to clarify, and I spoke to Ms. Strunken again, not only this morning, but I spoke to her since she arrived a year and a half ago, and I spoke to her predecessor, Mr. Thatcher Keyser, who was the director there for 3.5 years, about this very issue. At this time, and I mentioned in managing expectations, Mass Development has indicated they are not interested in hosting the fireworks at this time. That doesn't mean, as I mentioned in the presentation, that there isn't a future opportunity. However, a lot of work will be necessary for that proposal, and it has to go through that whole bureaucracy. But I am aware, and we have actively looked into this, and we remain cautiously optimistic that for the future there may be an opportunity there.
Me again. So if I get 2 minutes the first time, I can take 1 minute the second time.
Sure, go ahead.
All right, I mean, my thing is, that I don't think it's the money, it's that if we cannot, we need to get the group together and talk about, if we cannot get people in town to volunteer to fill in a lot of these positions, such as the roadways and all that, if we can't put together that kind of a team, then we don't have the 4th of July. We haven't put that effort out there yet, but if we cannot get citizens of Ayer to stand up and commit to doing this, then, it's an event that's not going to happen. I mean, I think this is made an awareness in the town that is going to get lost. Now that they're aware, we find out. Is there a group of people that will go through and do this? It's not money. I don't think money's the answer. The answer is either people step up, and we have the 4th of July, which is the one event that really draws a lot of attention from all the communities, the whole state. If the people are not willing to step up and do it, we'll find that out. But we at least got to, actually ask them. Volunteer, the board, the 4th of July, there's a great group of people. But this is not that. This is getting a group of people together to say, we will commit to it. If we will not commit to it, then we don't have the 4th of July. If we don't have the 4th of July this coming year in 2020, chances are it's never coming back. It's just the way these kind of events work out. Everybody will go somewhere else. If whoever can't pull the team together, it doesn't happen. We gave it an effort, but I think we should have a chance.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments this evening? All right. So we have nothing else? All right. So that's all we have. Thank you, everyone, for coming this evening. Appreciate the input and the feedback. We'll take everything under advisement and have a great evening. Thank you. Thank you. Right. I'll make a motion.